Greetings from Boston. I missed you guys very much. We're coming off a very exciting week of tennis at the Rotterdam Open, where the great Roger Federer secured his 97th career title and also in the process became the oldest world #1 in the history of tennis. That was something to see. Federer was in fine form this week. And we covered the Rotterdam Open pretty extensively. I did live commentary on the Federer versus Kohlschreiber. I think it was a second round match on Thursday. And that started as a test, in fact, but then enough people showed up and I just started doing commentary. We did about an hour of commentary on the Kohlschreiber match. The next day, we did, again, live commentary from Periscope, feeding onto the Twitter feed. Of the Federer versus Haase match, which was the important match that would determine whether Federer would become world #1. Saturday, I live tweeted the entire Federer versus Seppi semifinal, and you can go view that document, essentially comprising, I think, about 100 tweets. Wouldn't that be appropriate if it was 97 tweets? Maybe it is. I'll go count it up and let you know. But that document, point by point, blow by blow, of the Federer versus Seppi match is there for you to view at Tennis Talk Daily. And then finally, we did a live stream of the Federer versus Dimitrov match on Sunday, which again was a lot of fun. We had a great group of people. I learned a lot, and it was just it was very inspiring to watch it all go down in real time live. So now that the tournament is over, we are starting to hear talk about issues that we've been talking here at Tennis Talk Daily for a while now, right? People are starting to talk about the clay season. People are starting to talk about Dubai and the real possibility of Dubai. Now, Federer has kind of opened that up by making some comments, but and then, of course, there's just this larger question of maintaining the point issue and maintaining world #1 rather than just taking it away from Rafael Nadal. And I will just remind you that we have been discussing those issues in depth for over a week now, and it's just really coming to the minds of the people in the mainstream media. They're just starting to talk about it, but we've been covering it for quite a long time. So we really beat the crowd in that regard, and for that reason, subscribe to the channel to get essential commentary that takes the long view, that addresses all the fascinating, compelling questions about tennis, not only about particular players and particular matches, but about the history of tennis, the philosophical issues of tennis. So subscribe for the essential commentary. Give the video a thumbs up if you like what you see and hear. Well, the Rotterdam Open was there was a rhythm to the tournament for Federer, and he had at least, I think, one bad day, which was the day on Thursday, the match against Kohlschreiber. He came out, he wasn't shaven, and he just seemed very sluggish. I mean, he's human. He was just not having a great day. But on all the other days and in all the other matches, he delivered either throughout the match or at all the critical times. In the final against Dimitrov, the big question that comes up, I think, having viewed that final, is kind of what happened to Dimitrov, because Dimitrov seemed to kind of fall apart. He started off quite brilliantly, landing. I mean, obviously his strategy was to hit deep into the court and deep into the wings, into the corners, and was hoping to kind of trip Federer up in that regard. And for a while it was working, because Dimitrov was landing these shots just impeccably. But this eventually started to kind of wear off. He started to kind of burn out a little bit fairly early in the second set. He just couldn't sustain that level of play. I mean, Robin Haase in the quarterfinal was able to sustain a very high level of play for the entire first set and take the first set, but Dimitrov couldn't quite do that, and the question is just why. Well, I do believe that Grigor Dimitrov gets a little bit self-conscious when he's playing Roger Federer. I mean, after all, this is the person that we used to call baby-fed. It's the person whose style of play really is sort of derivative. It's a very derivative game of tennis that he plays, folks. And he's beautiful to watch, and I wish the best for him. And he's grown into his own to some degree, but certainly, you know, when he first got out there on the tour, it was very, very derivative. So I think he gets self-conscious, which means he gets out of the moment. and that can really kind of trip him up. I think that's a problem. But the bigger problem, of course, is Roger Federer. And Roger Federer was basically, you know, he was responding. He had answers. I think he came out into the final with Dimitrov with, I mean, he doesn't come out with strategies. I've said this before. He's anti-strategic, but his basic approach was, what do you got, Grigor? Not, I'm going to come out here and win this match, but much more, I'm going to let Dimitrov try to win this match. You know, what can you throw at me here? And then, of course, what happens is Federer has answers for what Dimitrov is serving up here. He has answers. He has answers for those deep shots into the wings, those little half volleys that he'll flick. And he uses a kind of jiu-jitsu mechanism by which he uses the force and speed of the shot coming at him against the opponent. He sort of blocks it back, but those half volleys from the corners can be just as fast as the shots that are coming at Federer. He uses it. It's jiu-jitsu. It's a jiu-jitsu strategy. It's very critical to Federer's game of tennis, but it's this hyper-responsiveness. He just responds. Whatever you've got for me, Grigor, I've got a response. I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to answer it quickly. That's one of the key considerations with Federer. It's not only the hyper-responsiveness, but it's the pace, it's the speed of the response. He takes it early, so just as Dimitrov is sort of feeling proud of himself for hitting this fantastic shot in the corner, before he can blink, Federer has flicked back an angled backhand that is essentially a winner, and the point is over. And that turns out to be something like a shock and awe strategy. I think that the speed, the response, the hyper-responsiveness and the speed of the responses, and that jiu-jitsu, you know, using the speed of the shot coming at him to defend and to shoot it back at the opponent, well, it not only saves energy, but it does come out to be something like a shock and awe. He shocks his opponents. They are baffled. They don't know what to do. And he baffled Dimitrov, and that's part of why Dimitrov fell apart. I think the other reason is because Dimitrov gets a little self-conscious. And I think also the other reason is that Dimitrov just couldn't sustain that the level of play that he was exhibiting early in the match. But again, the bigger problem for Dimitrov might have been also that he came out with a strategy. The strategy was to hit deep into the corners. Well, if you come out with a strategy against Roger Federer, who is essentially anti-strategic, he doesn't have strategies, he responds. He's hyper-responsive. If you come out with strategies and you don't have backups and you're not flexible, well, you're going to lose. And I think that's what happened, essentially. Came out with a strategy of you know, hit to the corners, hit into the wings deeply, and when he couldn't land those shots anymore, or where Federer had answers, he just didn't have anything else, so it all started to fall apart for Dimitrov at that point. So this sort of dovetails on the bigger question of sort of what can, in every tournament we learn something more about Roger Federer, or at least our thoughts about him are sort of clarified, and he's, in some ways, he's kind of a different player each time he comes out onto the court in these tournaments. So he's hard to figure. That's another problem. He's sort of unpredictable because he's hyper-responsive. Because there's no affirmative strategy, he's not predictable. He's not predictable. That's part of the shock and awe. But what can we learn about Federer's play in general from his Rotterdam performance? Well, I think we can learn that there's a duality in Federer's play. There's a certain kind of dualism, and the dualism is as follows. We can encapsulate it with the phrase the chameleon and the diamond. The chameleon and the diamond. And Federer is the chameleon when he's in that hyper-responsive mode, when he's just responding, and he's quickly responding. And he's basically adapting to the scenario. And he's totally unpredictable because he's dancing around the court and he's just responding. It's just pure responsiveness. And that's the chameleon of Federer. And that's what enabled him to win the final. Okay? But there's this other side of Federer that comes out only under certain conditions, and we'll call this other side of Federer the diamond. And the diamond, the Federer diamond, comes out only under conditions of high pressure, just like real diamonds, which are formed when pressure is applied, pressure and heat, intense pressure and heat over time are applied to carbon materials. Just like a real diamond, Federer the diamond comes alive when those high pressure situations are present. And we could see Federer the diamond on a couple of occasions in the Rotterdam Open. The first was in the Haase match, when Robin Haase had taken the first set from the great Roger Federer. This, of course, was the match, the quarterfinal, that was going to determine whether Federer was going to become the world's oldest #1. Well, that was enough pressure. Haase taking the first set was enough pressure to create the Federer diamond. And he came out in the second set literally a new player. I mean, he was a transformed player, and this was the diamond. And he went on to take that match very easily. He dealt out 2 breadsticks. It was just over. Once Federer the diamond, and Federer the diamond is like Fed Express, if you want to think about it in those terms. Federer the diamond is Fed Express, but he's also an animal. He's an affirmative animal. It's not responsiveness. It's not responsiveness. No, it's attack. That's Federer the diamond. He attacks. The other time that he did this, in addition to the second 2 sets of the Haase match, was in the Seppi match, when he was up 1 set, and they were in the second set, but they were on serve. Seppi took the great Federer to a tiebreak, and this was enough pressure for Federer the diamond to come out, and he knew he only had to do it in a sort of an explosive way in the tiebreaker. So the transformed animal, the diamond that came out in that match, came out at the beginning of the tiebreak. And again, go back and watch that match. It was literally a transformed player at the beginning of that tiebreak, and he just swept. He just cleaned up in that tiebreak. It was no competition. But again, it was not the hyper-responsive mode, not the chameleon, but it was Federer the diamond. And Federer the diamond only comes out under conditions of the highest pressure. The highest pressure, that's when he comes out. It's fairly conventional wisdom on the tour that Roger Federer often loses his practice matches. He's been doing that since he was a teenager. People just beat him during practice, and then they meet on a match court, and Federer pretty much always prevails. There's really no one that can beat him at this point. But again, he needs the high pressure. He needs pressure all the time. And the diamond is present to one degree or another all the time, but it really is brought out to the fore in those high pressure situations, and he turns into, rather than it being sort of a hyper-responsive, anti-strategic player, he becomes an affirmative, animalistic, aggressive, attacking player, often for just short periods of time. So let me know what you think of that, this kind of dualism in Federer's play that I think was on display in Rotterdam. The chameleon and the diamond. The chameleon and the diamond. Maybe I'll work up an article and get that published somewhere, or maybe we can just have the conversation here. But that's the concept, the dualism, the chameleon and the diamond. Let me know what you think. I'll be very interested to read your comments. I've got a lot of other great videos coming down the pike. Some have been kind of in abeyance while we paid attention to the Rotterdam tournament, but I'm going to get to work on a lot of stuff this week. So subscribe for the essential commentary. Give the video a thumbs up. I will look forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. Bye-bye.